Good afternoon. I'm Chuck Bardron with the University of Georgia Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the EDDMapS program as well as the new EDDMapS Pro smartphone app and what it can do that's a little bit different than the existing EDDMapS system that hopefully you're familiar with. I'm going to start off going through a few slides that give you a little bit of background about EDDMapS that should be reviewed for most of you, but I'm not going to spend very much time on this. And then we'll jump into looking at the website and looking at the app. So for those of you that don't know, EDDMapS was created around 2005 by our group here at the University of Georgia. And how it came about was we were collecting slides from all over the country of pictures of different forest health and invasive species and general agriculture and forestry as well. And we were putting those into CD-ROM products and also archiving them onto a website that ultimately became the Forestry Images website. And that entire bugwood image database system, which is forestry images, invasive.org, IPM images, and insect images, were all built out of the slide collecting that we were doing. That website was launched in 2001 and now has over 250,000 pictures as part of it. And while our focus was initially on forest health and kind of IPM, invasive plants really started playing a part of that. In the South, a lot of the forest health issues revolved around different invasive plants. And so we started pulling together information about invasive plants, put together a couple of CD-ROM and DVD-ROM products that the Forest Service made available as handout kind of products with information and pictures on them, as well as through the invasive.org website. And as we were doing it, I kept running into the problem that there were not any good distribution maps of those species, where they were located. We could find a lot of different maps, but they weren't consistent. They showed different distribution, and they really didn't tell the story that we wanted them to tell. So we said, okay, what's going on in the country? What can we learn from? What can we do? And the Invasive Plant Atlas in New England had been going for a few years, and we said, okay, hey, this is a product that we can really model EDDMapS, model a mapping system off of. They're collecting data using citizen scientists. They're doing trainings, teaching them about invasive species, and then they're going out and collecting data. So how can we make that better? And so we said, okay, well, let's build something using the North American Weed Management Association standards, which is now the North American Invasive Species Management Association standards. Let's use this mapping standards as the foundation for the database and build from there. And around this same time, Google had released what is called Google Maps API, which allowed you to take and layer your data on top of a Google Maps interface. So people had gotten very familiar with using Google Maps. And so this was a way to tell the invasive plant story, which was the focus at the time, on top of a Google map that everybody knew how to use. So what did we need? So we wanted to have that common operating platform for sharing data, as well as a way to do easy electronic reporting. So we started EDDMapS in 2005, and now it's being used across North America. It's being funded by a lot of different groups, including we have current projects with both Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And all of that goes into the EDDMapS Midwest website, which was launched a couple of years ago, and with a lot of information really focused on Minnesota and new features that have been added for Minnesota. And what we realized as we were building this, that our users are all over the place, that it's even really hard to, in some cases, tell the difference between a user who is doing this as part of their day job or who is doing it in off hours to kind of help fill in the map, help deal with the problem. And so when we looked at other systems, there were a lot of systems that, with iPaint, like half of the records were from Les Merhoff, who ran the program. But when we started looking at EDDMapS, we realized that 98% of our reporters had less than 1,000 records, and about 94% had less than 100 records. So we said, how can we make things better for them? And that's when the smartphone apps came around. We started building these different smartphone apps, these different interfaces that would be focused on different regions of the country, that would focus on different topics, and really give the user a tool they could use in the field. And all that went back into the EDDMapS website. You still could report online, you still could fill the form out and submit the record that way. You could also use the bulk data uploader to pull the information in that way. And then once the data came in, we could create various different types of maps with it, various different types of outputs with it, whether it be a county distribution map, a point distribution map, or zooming in and looking at a polygon of an infestation on the map. And so the scope of EDDMapS has grown over time. We started looking at, where's the data coming from, and kind of a concentration of different parts of the country. EDDMapS really broke up into these different regional groups, with the EDDMapS Midwest and Great Lakes Early Detection Network being the focus of the area that Minnesota is in. And EDDMapS has grown in terms of data, now have over 4 million reports, with about 3.2 million of those having lat long associated with them. And that covers 4,600 species from 15,000 different reporters or sources. Most of the data is still plant related, but we are starting to get more and more wildlife data put in, as well as some insects and disease data. And some of that's even traditional agriculture data. 2017, we were averaging about 100 reports a day, with the most being almost 1,000 reports in April of 2017. Over the year of 2017, we had about 38,000 different reports coming in from the web or from the smartphone apps. And as you can see, there was definitely a big jump in 2016, and that was due to a lot of Minnesota DNR employees going out with iPads and collecting data all day. When you have that large group of data coming in that way, as well as a project we were doing in Georgia with the county agents, we really saw a peak in data. But if you go back looking at 12 through 15, and even where we are so far in 18, you see that definitely the amount of data coming from the smartphone, from either the iPhone or Android, is really eclipsing what we're getting from the web. Minnesota is most definitely the state where the most data is coming into EDDMapS right now. And that somewhat goes back to that project in 2016, but we're also seeing the states that really have these strong active programs and have adopted EDDMapS as their state database, putting a lot of data into it, with Utah and Florida being two primary ones. We also, in Florida, where they are reporting a lot of animals, we said, okay, what's the distribution between plants and animals? And we said, okay, 82% of the overall reports were coming in as plants. That makes sense. Plants are easier to report, easier to put the data in. But then once you move over to smartphones, we realize, hey, people are using this technology to be able to report animals and capture that information, whether it's a roadkill or a live animal with the smartphone. So as this data has grown, as the data has come into EDDMapS and the system has grown, we realized there was a need, that the smartphone apps serve a good purpose for a lot of the occasional users, a lot of the users who need that field guide, who need that information to go along with it. But how can we make things better for the more advanced users, for the users that are really focused and collecting a lot of data at a time? And so Utah Department of Agriculture and the Utah Weed Supervisors Association along with Montana Department of Agriculture, came to us and said, "Hey, we need a tool to be able to do some of these things better." And so they jointly funded this project that was just called EDDMapS Pro. And what EDDMapS Pro does, and some of this is going to that Utah and Montana focus. They have county weed coordinators, and those county weed coordinators are really just responsible for one county at a time, and they need to know everything about every weed in that county, especially the ones that are listed by their state law. So the way the app works, the conception of the app works is you would go in, you would choose your county, Tooele County in this case in Utah, and you would download that data from the EDDMapS on the cloud onto your device. So all the records for that county would be downloaded as part of a package onto your device. And then once you're in the field, you would be able to drop a new point on the map and fill out a form just like you can in the other app, but it would be done from a map perspective. So you would see what other points are around when you drop this new point in. And you also would be able to do a revisit. And a revisit is a concept that's been in EDDMapS for a while, but has not been incorporated into the smartphone apps. So by having all the data for an area on your device, you're able to go in and say, hey, I saw this population, I treated it this day, I want to document this. Or I saw this population and it's actually grown in size, so I want to document that. And so that is really where the power of this EDDMapS Pro platform comes in. At the end of the day, you sync back to the servers, the data goes back in, you can re-download it, pull it back to your device, and then work on it the next day. And so by having that, once you get back into an office, get back somewhere where you have a more stable Wi-Fi or cellular connection, that's when you do the syncing back to the servers. Everything stays on your device and is stored there when you're out in the field, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you have cell phone coverage when you're in the field. And here's just a couple of screenshots of the Android version. I'm going to be going through the iPhone version in a second. And really, by having this method to go in and mark the records is not just positive, but is treated as eradicated, or if that you looked and it was actually negative, you're able to tell a different story with the map. And I think that's the really power in this, is you're able to have a new story, and your state is not just covered in a bunch of red dots, but your state is covered in a lot of different colors, so you can see that work's actually being done and progress is being made on this problem. And looking at where we've been, where we are so far this year, we've had 5,000 revisits done in the state of Utah, where they're really out there using this every day. And that's from 19 of the 29 counties. And we've also had revisits that have been done from another 19 states using this platform. And I think that's a really good success. And that's really coming back to the power of this handheld device. Anybody that's heard me talk before, I like to say, hey, well, you've got your field guide, you've got your GPS unit, you've got a good camera, you've got all these tools that are, data collecting tools that are all right there on your device. So let's continue to find ways where we can use this technology better to make each of you be able to do your job better. And then, with EDDMapS Pro, just like the other ways of getting data into EDDMapS, it goes in as a new report. That new report is sent for verification, and then once the verification is done, then it shows up on the website and becomes part of the system. And that is, really where the important part of this comes into play. So I'm going to jump out of this and hop over to the website. And so any questions before I kind of dive into the website? If you have any, then pop them in the box and we can talk about that. And meanwhile, I will jump us over here to the website and we can talk about that a little bit. One of the first things, and it's an important thing that you need to have to be able to do this, is a EDDMapS account. And that is as easy as going on and putting your information, signing up for an account, registering for an account, and then once you have that account, logging into the system. And so that's really the first key, making sure you know your password. You're going to need it to log into the app, and you're going to need it to really help set up the app. So once you get logged into the system, and I would suggest doing this before you even download the app. But if you go to the My EDDMapS page, then you've got two new features over here, one of which is my species list and one of which is my county list. And so what you're doing with these two features right now, these are EDDMapS specific features. And so those are going in and you're setting up, okay, what species do you want to be able to report on your device? If there's only a handful of species that you are working on, then there's no reason to have a full list of 300 species. So you can go in, I'm just going to clear my list. You can go in and you can say, okay, I'm going to report Kogon grass today. So I want to add it to my list. And then I want to report Japanese, let's just say Japanese beetle. That'll be a good one. And so you can add them one by one. One thing we've also done for some of the states is preloaded their lists in here. So if I wanted to add everything from the Utah noxious weed list, then I can just do add list, and my list is then going to be populated with all of the weeds on the Utah noxious weed list. So we can add other species lists to this. If you have a list that you're interested in having preloaded, then that's a very simple process for us to do. But switch over to the My County list. This is the counties that you're working in. This is where you go on and you say, here are the counties I want to have data available for me on my device. And so, you know, I can go in here and I can add my neighboring county in Georgia. I just choose Georgia, then type in the county and add it. And now it's going to show up on my list. And I'll show you in a second how that then populates over to the device. So I got a question. I'll go ahead and answer this as before I switch over to the phone. So the question is, when you do a revisit and change the status, do the previous colored pen disappear, or do you see a series of colored pen at the site? So on the web and on the phone, you will only see one point for that record, and it'll just be a different color. When you go to the individual website, when you go to the web page for that individual record, like in this case, you know, here's an original record that came in. It was, you know, originally found in 95. It was entered in 2013. And then in August of this year, it was checked again, and it was by somebody else, and it was listed, and still listed as positive. So the record color did not change. If you do a revisit through the web, you have the option of drawing a new polygon there. And so in that case, you will on this page see a stack of different species, of different points or different polygons for each year, and you'll have dates here that indicate that. So that may have what you've seen on the individual records when you're doing a revisit from the computer, because it does give you that opportunity. On the smartphone, you're really just updating the status, not updating the actual drawn population. So I had a question about the app kicking me out. The best thing to do with that is send us an email through the feedback form on the app, whether it be the Glendon app or EDDMapS Pro. That gives us information about the device you're using it on, and it also gives us information about what version of the operating system and of the app you're using, and so that can really be an easy way to for us to help diagnose the problem, and then we can email back and forth with you to try to figure out exactly what's going on. And then having a way to add all the counties. Currently, there is not a way to add all of the counties. You would have to do them one at a time. But if that would be an easy enough feature to add to this page. If that's something that there's enough people that need that feature. All right, one more question. I'm going to switch over to the app. Yeah, and then obviously adjacent to the state would be nice as well. That gets a little bit more complicated in terms of looking at that geospatially, but that you could definitely do it. You could definitely do it by hand, and that's something again that if there's enough of a need for, we could generate that list, and maybe it would be that we do it for have a way to add all the Minnesota counties as well as the surrounding counties. I could see that being useful. The way this is primary, if you're working at the county level, then it's pretty easy for you to add your county and your surrounding counties. So that's what a lot of the folks that are really using this have done. All right, so I'm going to, give me 1 second to switch this over. All right, so you should see my app screen now, and I'm going to, here's the EDDMapS Pro app down here in the bottom. I'm going to launch it, and I had it open before. So when you open it up, you're going to see where you're currently located, and you can zoom in and out on that. I've already loaded the data that we have for Tift County, so you're already seeing some points on the map when you first open this up. You can also, and as you'll see, that purple or the light blue circle, that's showing my error on my device, and because I'm sitting inside a building, obviously that's not going to be as good as it would be if you were outside and weren't dealing with a concrete roof. And you can very easily, by hitting the settings over here, change the map type. If you want it to be terrain, then you can change it to the terrain view, or even better, the satellite view. And so this would be where this background data would be where you would need to have you would need to be able to be on the have cellular coverage to be able to pull that imagery in, and then where you are will depend on how good that imagery is, and what's available through Google Maps. So if we switch back over to the normal view, you have some options here. There's a way to auto follow my location. So if you're driving and you're looking at it, then it will keep you centered as you move along. And let me go over here before I get into the data too much. So what you will get here is a list of the counties that you made on the My EDDMapS page. You'll be able to see those counties, and then you can download the data for those counties onto your device and then turn them on and off. So right now I've got Tift County turned on, and I've also got Ramsey County turned on. So if we go back to the map and I zoom out of where I currently am and scroll up to where y'all are, then you'll start seeing the data as you zoom in for this area. And as you can see, the records that have already been, marked as something other than positive will show up, and you can click on those records, see more information about it. You can click on it and view more details about the record, and then keep zooming in, and that wouldn't be a good example, but we find one. Obviously, there's both insect and plant reports in here as well. So if we're at this purple loosestrife record and we want to do a revisit, then you tap here. You're able to add photographs, and then you fill out, okay, so what kind of revisit was it? Was it monitoring? Were you doing a treatment? Was it an evaluation? And then you can change the status from positive to treated, to negative. So let's say I treated this one, and then I saved that. I'm not going to take a picture right now. And then as you see, it changed the color of that record to a gray, just to indicate, on this current view that you changed the status. So if you're going through an area and you're doing a lot of revisits, this will let you know that, hey, that one's already been done, and I'm going to move on to the next one, because that's a little bit of an issue when it's still in the queue and you haven't refreshed the data on your device. To add a new point, you hit plus. You can use your current location. You can draw a polygon. You can drop a marker, or you can go straight to the photo. I'm just going to say use my location. You're taken directly to the report form. You can click here, and here are the list of the species that I chose on my list. And so I'm going to say this is Australian pine. And then you're given the reporting form here, where you can put in the density, you can put in the area, you can put in any other comments, just like you would on the normal form, and then save that. And it will add a white point to the map as well. I think I was sitting right on top of the other one, and it's behind that other one. But in your upload queue, you have both any of the new observations as well as the revisits that show up there. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete both of those so they won't accidentally get updated. So we go back to the map. The other things you can do with the offline map. So the offline maps are, again, using that same county list that we were looking at before. Some of the larger counties are broken up into multiple sections. But for Tift County in this example that's already been downloaded, if I'm here and I want to turn on the offline maps, then it's going to overlay a layer of those offline maps onto the map. Now, you're not getting that good of zoom quality because of the size of these, but at least you would have some reference when you are out in the field of where you are and what you can be looking for. And I don't think that's as much of a problem with most of y'all in the areas you're working on in Minnesota, but it is a nice feature for some of those western states where they can go all day without having good cell coverage. Turn that off. So you've also got some settings here. One of those settings is to refresh your species list. You can have a way to save the images to your camera roll when they're being taken, so you can keep the pictures as well as add them to the reports. then that send feedback option that I mentioned earlier that will allow you to just send us an email with all the information to go along with it. Over here, there's some different options here. You can filter by eradication status, and this is set what status to remove. So I want to remove all the positive records. I want to clean this map up and just show the ones that are either negative or treated or eradicated. And so a very quick way to clean the map up, see which ones some work has been done on, and then you can turn that back on, and it's fairly instant in terms of its feedback. We also have ways to filter by some of the Western states noxious weed list, and that's something that feature, as well as adding other filtering to this, we're working on right now. One of the things that we've had come up recently is, okay, I only want to see the recent points. I don't want to see everything going back historically. I just want to see the reports in the last 6 months or the last year, the ones I may need to follow up on sooner rather than some of these really old points. And so that's also, a part of what a coming feature to this, and will be available in the next few weeks, so you can filter the data that way. Got a couple of questions that I'm going to switch over and talk about. Once the reports are verified in EDDMapS, can the data be downloaded in my ArcGIS program to create weed-specific maps for my county? I'm a new ArcGIS user and could use some help doing this. And yes, we will be, in the next few weeks, we'll have the shapefile download feature turned back on. We've got the bugs that were causing problems with that feature on the website, but you can do a custom query and download your data in that format. You can also download it as a CSV and pull it into ArcGIS as well if it's just point data. So yes, there's some ways of doing that, and once we get the shapefile format download back up and available on the website, then we're going to do a quick tutorial on best practices of getting that, and we'll make that available on the website under the tools and training section. Do you have to have a data plan to change the base maps in the field? You can't preload those in your area. So Google Maps is a little tricky in terms of what it will cache for you on your device. The ideal situation is to have a data plan on the device when you're in the field for using this and seeing what's around you. However, being able to go in, download those offline maps, and pull those offline maps off where you can take and have a good view of what's around you. That would be a way to be able to have some background imagery without having to have a data plan. The main thing you've got to just be careful about in that process is to make sure your GPS is updating as quickly as it needs to. But once it is, then the data would be downloaded on your device, and so you could go out in the field and not have to have a data connection to be able to use it in the field. So you can preload it, but it's at the county level right now, which limits the resolution a little bit. Yes, and you also can I think anybody for the Minnesota data can download the data through the Minnesota Geospatial Commons, where you can download the full data set of the verified records in EDDMapS from there. So once the data has been downloaded, how can it be updated? So good question. So if we go back to the data sets, So all you have to do, so the first step is you clear anything in your queue off of your device, because that data needs to get to the server before you resync. But then, if I hit this resync button right here for Tift County, it's going to create that data file, and it's going to re-download it and put it on my device. And it just did it fairly quickly because there's not very much data on here. So that's what the little refresh button beside the county does. You can also, at any point, delete it and re-download it to the device that way as well. If you have problems with your individual county that you're working on, if you run into something where it downloads and gets to 99% and then it stops, then please let us know. It's usually some kind of data issue that's causing it. We've got a few of the older apps or older version of the apps that's putting numbers in places where it's expecting text. And so we're working to clean those up. But if you run into a problem where it's not letting you display your data set, then please let us know, because we, as those issues come up, we can correct them at the source and keep them from happening again. So question about alerts. So yes, I did not show that, but I can switch over and show that on the website. If you go to my EDDMapS, then over here on the panel on the side, there's alerts, and you can go in and set your alerts for whatever you're interested in seeing. So if you want to see, everything in I will just choose Benton County in Minnesota. Let's say all the plants. Then every day at 8 o'clock Eastern time in the morning, an email is the alerts are sent, and it's going to send you anything that has come in and been verified in the previous 24 hours. And so that's the quick answer for how you do it at the county level. You can also do it at the state level. You can choose individual species that you're interested in and set up alerts for those. So it's pretty customizable here. Whatever you put in this, have under these different rows under the alert section is what you will get alerted on, and you will only get at most one email a day related to those alerts. One of the things that we're going for y'all that are verifiers, one of the things that we're ultimately going to add into the EDDMapS Pro platform is a way to where you can, when you're in the field and you're looking at the map, you would be able to see what records you're a verifier for and have not been verified yet. And so, like you would do a revisit, you'd have a pop-up, you'd be able to click on it and do a verification in the field and go ahead and check that off as you're doing the work. There is no current verification system in place for revisits, but we are working on that, and the best kind of practices to make it as easy as possible for users to manage those and be able to see when somebody revisits their record they originally put in. That's important. And we think ultimately we'll end up having different levels of users if this really grows to the point like it is in Utah right now, where there were 5,000 revisits so far this year. Then you don't necessarily, as a county verifier, want to have to look at all of those, but maybe a summary of those just to make sure somebody's not doing something really crazy. the nice thing about it is that revisits are not changing the original data. It is just adding on more information to it, and so that kind of helps keep track, and it does change the status, but we have a record of when that status was changed and who changed it. So I can see at some point us having it where different levels of users have different rights once they come into the app. And you know, the other part of this, and I think I've talked a lot about revisits, but the other part of this, and I've done that because that's what the main users are using this for right now, is trying to, you know, go back and look at the existing data in the system and cleaning it up. But you know, we've also tried to build this where it was as quick as possible to enter data and collect data. And that's where we went with this kind of map first display, where you don't have to go through multiple levels of fact sheets in order to choose your species. You know, you do it, you say use my location, you have a shorter list of just the things that you're interested in reporting. You choose from that list, and then you fill out the form. And I think that we're going to continue to tweak this form. So, you know, if you are a more advanced user and you want to collect more data fields, those would be optional on this form as well, just to kind of make that process even easier. So question is there a means to draw a polygon around nearby points to call them the same infestation, where the individual points have grown together? There is not currently in this version of the app. I can see that being something that we do along those lines. I think could be useful. We are, because of the limitations of the Google Map interface on the device, there's not a good way to show the individual polygons through this interface, where you would see multiple polygons. And so you can create new ones, but being able to kind of do what you're talking about, once you start overlaying a lot of data on top of Google Maps, and it can really slow down. And we're running into that with some of the counties with 20,000 points in one county, where you have a little bit of some performance issues on especially older devices. So, I think there's some ways that we can look at solutions for that. One of the things that the weed coordinators in Utah decided to do was take and basically do a 20-meter grid, and anything that was of the same species within that 20-meter grid, combine those as points, save the oldest one is the original point, and then make the other ones as revisits. So you don't lose any of the data associated with that. But so you still got that trail, but you don't have a bunch of points that are really close together. And so that may be a solution for some of the historic data to do something. But I think ultimately, as the devices continue to improve performance wise, as well as the the processors in these devices continues to improve. It's amazing how we can do on some of these larger counties, and looking at a iPhone 6 versus an iPhone 7, and even an iPhone 6 versus an iPhone 7 Plus, where you've got the 7 Plus has more memory than the 7 or the 6 does. the difference we're seeing in performance. And you're talking about with the 7 or 7 Plus, a device that's almost 2 years old now. And so, as the next generation of devices come out and they're able to process more data, and we're built, increasingly improving the performance within the app in order for it to be able to do more things. And I think, doing something like lassoing points is part of a polygon would be a next logical step. Lassoing points and saying, hey, I want all these points to be verified, because I know so-and-so, I'm filtering by, the person that did it. And then I'm, in the species. And so I can go in, filter that on the map, select the records and say, bulk verify these. And so I think those are obviously logical steps of where we're going to go with this. I think I've covered everything I wanted to make sure that y'all saw, and we're getting close to an hour. So with any other questions, if somebody's got something I can, and you're connected with audio, I can, if you want to raise your hand, then I think there's a way to click and raise your hand. I can unmute you and we can do it that way, or type it into the question box, either way. And we're like I said, we're working on some filtering right now, and there'll be a new version coming out. So the EDDMapS Pro version, the EDDMapS Pro app, if you go to the App Store and search for EDDMapS Pro, then it should be the first thing that pops up on the iPhone store, and you can download it and start using it. And similar with the Android store. So it's just available free through the Google and Apple store. So I had a question: is there a way to use ArcMap collector software and customize it to collect data and send it to EDDMapS and ArcMap? The quick answer is yes. What we have tried to do with EDDMapS Pro is not really compete with ArcMap or Arc Collector, but there are, to use the collector app, you have to have a ArcGIS license. And where that's not a problem for some groups, for other groups, it's a huge problem. And so, what we've tried to do with this is do something that helps solves a problem and pulls the data in and out, and allows you to have something that's a little more focused on invasive species than what you're going to get with the ArcMap software, Arc Collector software, and not require that license. So, I think that, one thing we need to work on, and we've got a few people that are using Collector, ways to make it as easy as possible, if you want to use Collector and you have the license, to make that transition back and forth between EDDMapS. And that's something we're going to continue to explore better ways of doing it. So if you've been using the Glendon app, would this replace that? What's the difference? I think that's important that I go back and talk about that a little bit. So the Glendon app is not going anywhere. The Glendon app is, has the information, has the pictures to go along with the species. It is really, was built as much as a citizen scientist or as a professional that's collecting a little bit of data at a time. And so, that what we've tried to do with EDDMapS Pro is not replace Glendon, but build a better tool for users that are collecting a lot of data, or managing a lot of data. And so we left out the field guide. The whole download of the initial download of EDDMapS Pro is only 22 megabytes, because it does not include the all the pictures that are included in Glendon. Now, once you download offline maps for a few counties, you're easily going to eclipse the size of that Glendon was. But the initial download's a lot smaller. Some of that weight that was there with the with Glendon is not there, because this is for a user that knows how to identify the plants. So I could see a user keeping Glendon on their device, and using Glendon as their field guide, and then using EDDMapS Pro as their reporting tool. And if you've seen any of the stuff about Wild Spotter, then you could call Wild Spotter the EDDMapS Lite. And it's focused just on national forest right now, but EDDMapS, but the Wild Spotter project that we're working on with the Forest Service is even a more light version of the Glendon app. So a question about the rotate button. We have added a rotate button to the form where the verifiers can rotate pictures if the pictures come in sideways. Sometimes Android devices send the pictures in sideways, and it is not consistent across all Android phones, and there's no way to control it on our end, unfortunately, that we've found so far. If you're having problems with rotating the pictures, then yeah, send me an email and let me know exactly the scenario, and we'll track that down and get it fixed. So, question about different accounts. So, if you have two different accounts, then we probably need to clean that up on the server side, and we easily can. But you do not need two separate accounts. You don't need one account for the EDDMapS website and one account for EDDMapS Pro. One account will let you log in to the EDDMapS website, to EDDMapS Pro, and to the Glendon app. So, yes, the question about using iNaturalist data. So, yes, we have been working with iNaturalist and using their API and some other tools to pull in the data from iNaturalist. This of research grade or better. If you're familiar with iNaturalist, 2 people verifies it on iNaturalist. So once something has been verified by 2 people on iNaturalist, then we are routinely going to pull that data in and send it through the EDDMapS verification process. So if, giant hogweed, for example, was reported somewhere in Minnesota using iNaturalist, a couple of people said, hey, this looks correct, then it would go into the verification queue for it to be reviewed within EDDMapS, on a routine basis. We're just kind of running that. We did the backlog, and then we're going to keep running it every few months or so, just to make sure we don't miss something that's useful. And again, iNaturalist, just like Art Collector, they're great tools. They're great platforms. They weren't built specifically for invasive species. And so that's what we're trying to do with EDDMapS, is have something that allows you to collect data that's related to invasive plants, to invasive species, and then manage that data without having to, the limitations you may have with iNaturalist or the fee you may have with Collector. Any other questions? Well, feel free. I will pop my email address up here. as I wait for any more questions to come in. Feel free to email me afterwards, and I'll be glad to answer any other specific questions, and then um, and then we can I'll be free. Download the app, give it a try, give us your feedback, and we're kind of creating we try to correct any bugs as quick as we can, and then feature requests go into a list, and as we get enough interest in those different features, then we get those added into the system. And I think the more folks, Minnesota is obviously different than Montana and Utah, and if enough folks start using this in Minnesota, then there'll be some tweaks that are needed to make it work for y'all better. So yeah, and that I had a question, and I'll address it as in closing. But some dandelions coming in from my naturalist, and that's something we can definitely work through if you as a group in Minnesota are not interested in a species, this a yardweed or whatever that's included on EDDMapS, then that's definitely a conversation we can have, about modifying that. So, and a question about downloading data in St. Louis County. I will take a look at that and send you a follow-up email once we finish up today. So, all right. Well, we are right at an hour, so I'm going to stop the recording and save this, and then we will be glad to answer any other questions via email. And thanks for y'all your attention today.